The sky above the planet Karetan was deep green, filled with twin moons and silver clouds. The wind blew across the stone towers of the capital city, carrying the sound of drums. Today was a special day. A human had come from Earth. His name was Rami, and he was not a soldier. He was a diplomat, a speaker, a builder of peace. Karetan was not like Earth. The people were taller, with smooth bronze skin and sharp yellow eyes. They followed a warrior law that was written in the stars. On this planet, power meant everything. If one warrior defeated another, he could take his belongings. And if the warrior had a mate, the winner could claim her too. This law was old, and it was followed with pride. Rami knew about the law, but he hoped words could change minds. He had arrived with messages of trade, knowledge, and friendship. But some on Karetan did not want peace. They saw Earth as weak and humans as soft. The leader of Karetan was a tall and silent man named Dran. His daughter was Sina, a strong young woman trained in combat since childhood. She had sharp eyes and a calm voice. Many respected her, and some feared her. Sina was bonded to a warrior named Tharun, known for his skill and pride. He had earned her through victory in the arena. It was tradition. Rami first saw Sina during a council meeting. She stood beside her father in full armor, her gaze steady. She watched Rami with interest, but said nothing. Rami, dressed in simple gray robes, greeted the council with respect. He spoke about peace and learning. He offered gifts from Earth, books, music, seeds from forests. Some Karetans listened, others laughed. Tharun did not laugh. He stepped forward and pointed at Rami. "You come with soft words," he said, "but you walk among warriors. You speak of peace, but you stand beside my mate with eyes too bold. Do you think you are her equal?" Rami blinked. He had not looked at Sina with any boldness. He had simply noticed her strength, her posture, her calm face. He tried to speak, but Tharun raised his voice. "I challenge you," Tharun said, loud, enough for all to hear. "By law of Karetan, I challenge you to a duel. If I win, your mission ends here. If you win, you may claim what the law allows." Gasps spread through the crowd. Sina's eyes widened, but she said nothing. Rami felt his heart beat faster. He did not want a fight. He did not come to take anyone's place or claim, but to refuse the challenge would show weakness. And if humans were seen as weak, everything he came for could be lost. He looked at Tharun and nodded. "I accept," Rami said, his voice steady. That night, the arena was filled. Thousands of Karetans stood around the stone ring. Fires burned in tall bowls, casting shadows on the ground. Sina stood beside the council, her face unreadable. Rami wore light armor provided by the Karetans. He carried a short staff, not a blade. Tharun, in shining armor, held a long curved weapon. He smiled, with confidence. This would be easy for him. The horn sounded. Tharun charged first, swinging his blade fast and wide. Rami stepped back, dodged, and kept his feet light. He had trained in a different way, fast thinking, quick movement, and defense. He was not stronger, but he was calm. Minutes passed. The crowd grew quiet. Rami ducked, rolled, and blocked. He used the staff to redirect, not strike. Tharun grew angry. He swung harder. Finally, Rami saw his chance. As Tharun lunged forward, Rami spun and knocked the blade from his hands. With one final move, he tapped Tharun on the chest with the end of the staff and stepped back. Tharun fell to one knee. The arena was silent. The horn sounded again. Rami had won. By the law of Karetan, Sina was now his to claim, but Rami did not step forward. He raised his hand. "I came here to build peace," he said. "I did not fight for prize or power. I do not claim what is not mine." The crowd murmured. The council looked at one another. Sina stepped forward. She looked at Rami for a long moment, then spoke. "You had the right to take me," she said, "but you chose not to." Why? Rami looked into her eyes. "Because people are not things," he said, "and peace cannot be won by force." Sina turned to her father. Dran said nothing. He simply nodded once, slow and thoughtful. The law had not been broken, but something had changed. Rami left the arena that night not as a conqueror, but as a question. The people of Karetan whispered about the human who won by not taking. Some called him wise, others called him a fool. But Sina could not forget his words. That night, she sat alone on the roof of the tower, looking at the twin moons, thinking of the man who could have claimed her but chose to walk away. The next morning, light poured over the city of Karetan. The stone towers glowed under the twin suns. Birds with wide green wings flew in circles, calling across the sky. But inside the halls of the high tower, the air was cold and heavy. The fight between Rami and Tharun had become the talk of the planet. Never before had a human won a challenge in the arena, and never before had a victor refused the prize. Some said Rami was wise, some said he was foolish, but everyone agreed. What he had done was not normal. Sina sat alone in the hall, her mind full of thoughts. She remembered the way Rami had fought. He did not move like a Karetan warrior. His feet were light, his hands careful. He did not try to harm, only to stop. And he could have taken her after his win. The law allowed it. But he only spoke of peace. A soft knock came at the tall door. A voice spoke. "Sina, your father calls for you." She rose from her seat and walked through the long halls. The walls showed carvings of old battles. Warriors stood tall, holding weapons above fallen enemies. These stories had shaped her whole life. She entered the council chamber. Her father, Dran, sat at the high seat. Beside him stood two elder warriors and a tall woman in green robes. Rami stood a little behind them, his hands folded. "Sina," Dran said, "the council has spoken. Rami is no longer a guest. He is now an honored voice. He may speak on behalf of Earth." Sina looked at Rami. He nodded once, not proud, only calm. The elder warrior with silver bands on his arm stepped forward. "We do not forget tradition," he said. "Tharun has fallen. You belong to the one who defeated him." "I know the law," Sina said. "Then you know your place now lies with Rami." There was silence. Sina looked at Rami again. He lowered his eyes. "I will go with him," Sina said, "but not as a thing to be owned. I choose to learn why he fought with care. I choose to walk beside him for my own reason." The woman in green nodded. "Then let this be recorded. The bond is changed by will, not force. Let the scroll keep both names, joined by choice." Later that day, Rami walked in the garden behind the tower. The trees were blue with long hanging leaves. Small creatures ran between the roots. Sina joined him. "You did not ask me to come," she said. "I did not wish to break your life," Rami said. "You did not break it. You only gave it a new shape." They walked in silence for a time. The path curved around a pond. Bright fish swam near the surface. "You fought without anger," Sina said. "Tharun always fought with pride, with fire. You did not look proud." "I was afraid," Rami said, "but I knew fear must not guide my hand. I came here to build a bridge, not to burn one." "You speak like a builder." "But you moved like a warrior?" "I trained, yes. But I trained to stop harm, not cause it." Sina thought about that. It was strange to her. All her life she had trained to win, to strike before being struck. But Rami had fought only to protect peace. "What would you have done if I ran from you after the fight?" she asked. "I would have let you run," Rami said. "Freedom is not something to catch." That night, a feast was held in the great hall. Flames danced on every wall. Food from many worlds was shared. Music echoed across the stone floors. But not all hearts were joyful. The Rune sat in silence near the edge of the hall. His face was dark with thought. His honor was lost. His bondmate had walked away. And the one who defeated him was praised by the council. A warrior beside him spoke. "The human was lucky. You will rise again." But Tharun did not answer. His eyes stayed on Rami, who sat with Sina near the council table. Rami did not eat much. He spoke kindly to all who came near. Sina stayed beside him, answering questions and watching the people. Some looked at her with respect, some with doubt. One warrior stepped forward and bowed. "You broke no law," he said to Rami, "but many still question your way." "I understand," Rami said. "I am not here to break your ways. I am only here to show mine. And if the two cannot live together, then both will suffer." The warrior nodded and stepped back. Sina leaned toward Rami. "You speak with great care," she said. "I have to," Rami answered. "One word can build trust. Another can destroy it." As the feast ended, Sina looked once more at the stone carvings on the wall. She saw warriors, battles, and old codes. She wondered if a new carving might one day show not a fight, but two hands reaching across stars. In the quiet of her room that night, Sina stood at her window. The sky was full of stars. She thought of the challenge, the fight, and the human, who fought not for victory but for peace. The law had spoken. The arena had chosen. But something deeper had changed. Not just in the council. Not just in the people. It had changed in Sina, and she was not afraid of the change. The sun rose over Karetan's red hills, casting soft light through the tall glass windows of the tower. Rami stood on a wide balcony, his hands resting on the stone edge. The air was cool, and the sound of birds filled the sky. Below him, the city was waking up. Traders opened shops, young warriors trained in the courtyards, and guards changed posts. But Rami's thoughts were not on the city. His thoughts were on the law of this world, and what it truly meant to win a challenge where the prize was a person. Even though he had not claimed Sina, the law said she belonged to him. That idea troubled him. Sina stepped onto the balcony a short while later. She wore simple clothing, not her warrior armor. Her face was calm, but her eyes held questions. "You rise early," she said. "I could not sleep," Rami replied. "You still think about what happened in the arena?" "Yes," Rami said. "Not because of the fight, but because of what came after." Sina nodded. She walked to the edge of the balcony and looked at the city below. "I was born under that law," she said. "From childhood, I knew that victory meant power, and if you lost, you were claimed. It was our way." "Do you still believe in it?" Rami asked. "I believed in it because it was all I knew," she answered. "But after your words, I began to ask myself something I never asked before. If a person wins a fight, does that give them the right to control another's life?" "What answer did you find?" Sina turned to him and said, "No." They stood there for a moment, letting the wind speak for them. Rami saw that her choice, To stay with him was not because of the law, but because of her own will. That made all the difference. Later that day, they met with the council again. The chamber was full. Elder warriors stood in a circle, their faces serious. Dran sat in the highest seat. Rami and Sina stood before them together. One elder spoke, his voice deep. "We respect your victory, human, but questions have risen. Sina walks beside you. The law says she belongs to you, yet many saw her choose her path. We ask now, what is your claim?" Rami stood straight. He looked at every elder before he spoke. "I make no claim," he said. "Sina is not mine, she is her own." Another elder with a sharp voice leaned forward. "Then do you refuse the law of Karetan?" "I respect your law," Rami said, "but I believe no law should take away a person's right to choose. Sina chose to walk with me. That is stronger than any rule written on stone." The room was silent. Dran looked at his daughter. "Sina," he said, "do you confirm this?" "I do," she answered. "I am not bound by the law's reward. I walk beside Rami by my own choice. I seek to understand him, his people, and the ways of earth," the council whispered among themselves. This had never happened before. A bond formed by tradition had been broken by will. The elders knew that if they rejected this, they would be seen as rulers of chains. If they accepted it, they would open a door to change. Finally, Dran spoke. "Let it be known," he said, "that from this day, bond by victory may be refused by free choice. This choice must be spoken before the council and made clear. The law is not broken, but it will no longer be blind." The scroll keeper stepped forward and recorded the words. Outside the tower, word spread fast. Some cheered the change, others feared it, but no one ignored it. Sina's choice had shaken the old code, not with force, but with reason. That evening, Sina and Rami sat in the quiet garden. The blue-leaf trees swayed in the wind. Lights from the towers glowed like stars. "You could have stayed silent," Sina said. "The council would have kept you as my bondholder. You would have had power over me." "I never wanted that," Rami replied. "I only wanted to leave this world better than I found it." "Then you have already done much," she said. They watched a small creature leap between stones in the water. Its tiny eyes sparkled in the fading light. Sina turned to Rami. "I used to believe that strength came from control," she said. "But now I see something else. You had power and gave it away. That is a different kind of strength. You gave something too," Rami said. "You gave your voice, and it changed the council. Not with weapons, but with words." Sina smiled for the first time that day. A messenger arrived shortly after with a scroll marked in red. Rami opened it and read quietly. Then he handed it to Sina. "What does it say?" she asked. "It is an invitation," he said. "To speak before the circle of elders in the outer provinces. They want to hear about Earth, about the way humans live. They ask if I will go." "And will you?" "I will not go alone," Rami said. "Not if you will come with me." Sina looked at the stars rising above the horizon. The path ahead was not easy, but it was hers now. She had left behind old ways. Ahead lay new lands, new voices, and a new bond made not by law, but by choice. "I will come," she said. Together, they stepped into the night. the stars above. Khariton shone brighter than ever, as if they too were watching a new chapter begin. The sky of Khariton turned orange as the twin suns dipped behind the high cliffs. Fires were lit along the tall towers, and music from flutes and horns echoed in the city streets. But far from the noise, in a quiet corner of the temple garden, Sina stood alone under a silver tree. She held a small blade in her hand. It was not drawn for battle. She only looked at its reflection, thinking deeply. Her past was full of training, lessons, and loyalty to old ways. She had once believed that honor came from tradition, from winning and holding power. Now her heart was unsure. The path she had chosen was not the one her teachers had prepared her for. Rami found her there. He walked slowly, giving her time. When she turned toward him, he saw the same strength in her eyes, but also something new. She was not only a warrior now, she was also a seeker of truth. "Are you ready to travel?" Rami asked gently. "Yes," Sina said, "but not without questions." He nodded and sat beside her on the smooth stone bench. "I have questions too," he said. Sina looked up at the sky. "When I first met you," she said, "I thought you were weak. You had no armor, no title, no fire in your voice. But I see now that there is another kind of fire." Rami smiled a little. "Your people taught you to fight with blades. Mine taught me to fight with patience." She turned to him. "Can your kind win battles with patience?" "Not always. But sometimes the greatest victories do not come from force. They come from listening, from waiting, from knowing when not to strike." Sina looked again at the blade in her hand. Slowly she placed it back in its cloth cover and tied it to her belt. "Then I will listen too," she said. They left the next morning. A small flyer took them across the skies of Khariton. From above, the cities looked like shining webs, stretching between cliffs and rivers. Rami watched with wonder. Sina sat quietly beside him, lost in thought. Their first stop was the outer province of Mirat, where the circle of elders waited. These elders were known to be strict keepers of law. They had seen Rami's words in the scrolls. Some were curious. Others were suspicious. The hall of the circle was wide and dark, lit only by flame pits. Tall columns held up the roof, and carved symbols covered the walls. Sina stood with Rami before the elders, dressed in her simple gray cloak. An elder stepped forward. He had long white hair and dark eyes. "Human," he said, "you speak of peace, of choice, of walking away from old laws. Yet this world is built on those laws. If we follow your ways, will our strength fade?" Rami stepped forward. "Strength is not lost by change," he said. "It is tested. If your ways are truly strong, they will survive even when others choose freely. If they fall apart when challenged by kindness, then they were never strong at all." A second elder, tall and thin, pointed at Sina. "And what of you, warrior? You were claimed by the old code, yet you walked away. Why should we accept that as right?" Sina did not step back. She spoke with a clear voice. "I followed the law because I was told to. But when I saw another way, I realized I could choose. My bond with Tharan was won through combat. My bond with Rami was won through respect. That is the stronger bond." The elders murmured among themselves. The room felt heavy, but no one spoke against her. After the meeting, as the sun set behind, The tall towers, Sina and Rami walked through the streets of Mirat. Children played with small hover toys. Traders sold warm fruit and soft cloth. An old woman with faded tattoos handed Sina a wooden flower and smiled. "You speak with courage," the woman said. "We have needed that for a long time." Sina bowed her head, but even as they walked through light and laughter, shadows followed behind. Far away in the dark corners of Karatan, Tharoon watched from a distance. His face was hidden by a hood. He had followed them in secret, walking alone from city to city. His honor had not healed. His pride had not faded. He believed the old law had been shamed, and he believed he must restore it. Inside him, a storm was growing. That night, in a quiet inn near the edge of the city, Sina looked out the window while Rami read from a small screen. The stars above were bright, and the moonlight painted the room in silver. "Do you think they understood us?" she asked. "Some did," Rami said. "Some need more time." "Time may not be enough," Sina said. "Some will fight to keep the law as it was." Rami stood and walked to her side. "Then we will not fight back with blades. We will show them a better way, not by force, but by living the truth." Sina nodded. Her heart still carried the voice of her training, but now it also carried another voice, a quieter one, but not weaker. The voice of reason, the voice of change. Far away, in the hills beyond Mirat, Tharoon lit a fire. He sharpened his blade and watched the flames. In his eyes, the story was not over. Not yet. The days passed quickly as Rami and Sina continued their journey. They moved from city to city, speaking before elders, students, and warriors. Each place held different voices. Some welcomed their ideas, others turned away. But slowly, small changes began to grow across Karatan. One morning they reached the mountain city of Halvan, built into tall cliffs. Bridges of stone and light crossed deep canyons. People from many regions gathered there for trade and learning. The city was known for its great library and its temple of reflection. Rami stood before a group of young warriors in the Hall of Knowledge. His words were calm, and his face showed peace. He spoke of Earth's history, of times when humans also followed strict rules that caused harm, and how they changed over time. "Change is not weakness," he said. "Change is the sign that something is alive. Even stars are born, grow, and fade. But their light can guide others long after they are gone." The warriors listened. Some nodded. Others stayed silent. Sina stood beside him, her hands resting on the belt of her cloak. She did not need to speak often. Her presence was enough. After the speech, a boy from the group walked to them. "My name is Varn," he said. "I was taught that to lose a fight means to lose honor. But when I saw you in the arena, you did not fight to win. You fought to protect. Can I learn that way too?" Sina smiled at the boy. "Yes," she said. "You already have." But while peace touched some hearts, others grew colder. Far from the light of the city, Tharoon walked through a deep cave hidden under the cliffs. He had followed Rami and Sina across half the planet. Each time he heard of a new speech, a new change. His anger grew. To him, the old law was not just a rule. It was the heart of Karatan. If that law died, he believed their strength would die with it. Inside the cave, Tharoon met with two others. Both wore dark armor and masks. They were known as the Silent Blades. warriors who worked outside the law to protect it from change. "You have called us," one of them said. "We have listened." "The council grows soft," Tharun said. "This human and the one who betrayed our code travel freely. They poison the minds of the young. You want them stopped?" "No," Tharun said. "I want them shown that our ways still stand. A new challenge must rise. A trial. Let it happen where all can see, and this time, no mercy." The silent blades nodded. Back in the city of Halvan, Rami and Sina walked through the gardens, beside the temple. The flowers there were known to bloom only once every 5 years. This was one of those years. White and blue petals opened slowly, giving off a soft light. Sina reached out and touched a flower gently. "Sometimes I feel like this," she said. "Still opening, still unsure." "You've opened more than you think," Rami replied. Before she could answer, a messenger approached. He wore the seal of the High Temple. "You are summoned," he said, "by the voice of the flame." The voice of the flame was one of the oldest spiritual leaders on Karatan. She rarely called visitors. Rami and Sina followed the messenger through long paths until they reached a round stone chamber. The room was quiet. A single fire burned in the center. The voice sat on a tall seat. Her eyes were pale, her hair silver. "You walk a new path," she said to Rami, "and many follow behind. But when paths change, winds rise, shadows grow." Rami nodded. "We try only to share choice, not to erase your ways." "I know," the voice said. "But your presence has awakened more than thought. A trial has been spoken, one from the old code. It cannot be refused." Sina stepped forward. "What kind of trial?" "Not a battle of death," the voice replied, "but a trial of flame and wind, a climb to the sky bridge, a test of will, mind, and spirit. And you must face it together." Rami did not speak. He looked at Sina. Her face was calm, but he could feel the weight behind her eyes. "When does it begin?" she asked. "At dawn," the voice said. That night they sat by a small fire outside the temple. No words were needed for a long time. The stars above seemed closer, brighter. The sky bridge, far in the distance, stood tall above the land. It was an ancient place, made of stone and air. It had seen many trials. Some had passed, some had fallen. Rami broke the silence. "Do you think this is a trap?" "Maybe," Sina said. "But we will not walk in fear." He looked at her hands. They were strong, marked with years of training, but they no longer carried the cold grip of control. They carried something warmer now. Choice, trust. "Whatever comes," Rami said. "We face it side by side." Sina nodded. "We always have. Far, beyond, hidden in the dark paths of the cliffs." Tharun stood in silence. He watched the firelight flicker in the valley below. His hand rested on the hilt of his blade, but he did not draw it. Not yet. The trial was coming, and it would decide. More than victory or loss, it would decide what kind of world Karetan would become. The sun barely touched the horizon when Rami and Sina stood at the base of the sky bridge. The great stone structure stretched high above the valley, thin and long, disappearing into swirling clouds. Many warriors before them had faced this challenge, but none quite like these two. The air was cold, and the wind whispered softly, carrying voices from long ago. Around them, a crowd had gathered. Elders, warriors, and curious citizens watched silently. The council had declared this trial necessary, not to punish, but to test the strength of their bond and their spirit. Sina took a deep breath, steadying her heart. She looked at Rami, who stood calm and steady beside her. Though the trial was ancient and harsh, they had come this far together. They would face what came as one. The elder who led the ceremony stepped forward. His voice was strong and clear. This trial will test not only your bodies but your minds. You must cross the sky bridge facing flame and wind, fire and storm. Trust in each other. Fail, and the law will decide your fate. Rami nodded. We will face it together, he said. The first part was the climb. The bridge began wide at the bottom, but quickly narrowed. Stone steps rose sharply, worn smooth by countless feet. The wind grew stronger as they climbed. Sina's hand found Rami's. They moved slowly, carefully. Below them, the valley stretched deep and wide. Halfway across, a sudden gust hit. It pushed against them like a wall of air. Rami tightened his grip on Sina's hand. Together, they leaned into the wind, steadying each other. Keep your balance, Sina whispered. We are stronger as one. The next test was fire. At the bridge's center, great torches blazed. The heat was fierce. Flames danced wildly, but the path between them was narrow and uneven. Sina moved with careful steps, her eyes sharp. Rami followed, calm and focused. A spark flew toward Rami's cloak. He paused, then lifted it just enough to avoid the flame. Sina caught the movement and smiled. Quick thinking, she said. They passed the flames, their bodies warmed but unhurt. Beyond the fire, the bridge narrowed again. The final test was wind and mind. Strong winds whipped at their backs, threatening to push them off. But the hardest part was the silence. No voices, no noise, only the sound of breath and heartbeat. They had to trust each other completely. Rami closed his eyes. He reached for Sina's hand. Their fingers met, strong and steady. Together, he said softly. Sina nodded. They moved forward, step by step, breathing as one. The wind howled, but it could not break their bond. At last, they reached the end. The crowd cheered. The elders smiled. The trial was past. Sina looked at Rami with new respect. We did it, she said. Rami smiled back. Because we trusted each other, the elders approached. You have shown great courage and unity, the lead elder said. Not all could face this trial with such strength. You honor both the old law and the new way. Sina stepped forward. We honor the law, she said. But we honor choice more. The elder nodded. Then it is time to write a new chapter in Karatan's history. That night, beneath the twin moons, a ceremony was held. Rami and Sina stood before the crowd. Sina removed her warrior's cloak and handed it to Rami. This cloak is a symbol, she said, not of possession, but of partnership, of respect and freedom. Rami accepted it with a bow. Together they spoke of peace, of change, and of hope. The crowd listened, many moved by their words. Far away, hidden in shadows, Tharun watched the ceremony. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. The trial was over, but the story was not. The stars above Karatan shone bright. They had witnessed many battles, many laws, many changes, and now They watched as a new story began, a story of unity, trust, and strength beyond force. The morning light bathed the city of Karatan in soft gold. The twin suns rose slowly over the distant hills, warming the stone towers and the narrow streets below. The people of Karatan gathered in the great plaza, their faces filled with curiosity and hope. Today was a day of change. At the center of the plaza stood Sina and Rami. Sina wore simple robes, not the armor of a warrior. Rami held the cloak she had given him during the trial. Together they faced the crowd, ready to speak. Dran, Sina's father and leader of Karatan, stood nearby. His face was calm, but strong. He had watched the events of the past weeks with a quiet mind. Now, he was ready to guide his people forward. Sina stepped forward first. Her voice was clear and steady. For many years, our people followed the law written in stone. It said that the victor in battle could claim the bondmate of the defeated. This law shaped who we were. It gave order and strength. But it also brought pain and fear. She looked at the crowd. Today we stand at a new beginning. We honor the past, but we choose a different path. A path where bonds are formed by choice, not by force. Where respect guides our hearts, not conquest. The crowd was silent. Some faces showed surprise. Others showed relief. Rami spoke next. On Earth, we learned that strength is not only in power or victory, it is in kindness, understanding, and freedom. When we come together, we create something greater than ourselves. He looked at Sina. Our bond is not from law or challenge. It is from choice, from respect, from hope. Dran stepped forward and raised his hand. The Council and I accept this new code. The law will be rewritten to reflect our change. No longer will bonds be claimed by force. From now on, every bond must be formed by free will. A cheer rose from the crowd. The people began to clap and shout in joy. Some warriors embraced each other. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Sina smiled and looked at Rami. Together we have shown that peace is stronger than battle. Rami nodded. But the journey is not over. Change takes time. Some will resist. But with courage and care, we will build a future where all are free. Later that day, a feast was held. Tables were filled with food from Karatan and Earth. Music played and children laughed. Stories were shared around fires. The stars shone bright above, as if celebrating with the people below. Far from the city, in a quiet valley, Tharun watched the celebrations from a distance. His face was thoughtful. The law he had fought for was no longer the only way. He felt loss, but also something new. Respect for the courage it took to change. He turned and walked away, ready to find his own path in this new world. Back in the city, Sina and Rami stood on a hill overlooking the lights. They held hands and looked at the stars. The law was harsh, Sina said softly. But we have shown that even harsh laws can change. Rami smiled. And from those changes, new stars will be born. The wind carried their words into the night, across the hills and rivers. A new story had begun, one of hope, of choice, and of unity, and the stars above watched quietly, shining brighter than ever before.